Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Happy Sunday, as usual. If this is your first time tuning into one of these live sessions, I'm Leah. I'm going to be talking about sisterhood and brotherhood in Islam. And again, for those of you who are just watching one of these videos, especially one of my videos for the first time, I'm going to be looking, off camera a lot because I always keep my notes down here. So sorry if I'm not making eye contact all the time. So anyway, inshallah, we'll go ahead and get started. The topic is sisterhood and brotherhood in Islam. So it's kind of a broad topic. There are a lot of different ways we could go about this. I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about just the very basics. What does this mean? And the implications of what having this brotherhood is, and then the reality of how it plays out in our world. So as I'm watching, let's see if I can scroll through. I can scroll through the comments while I'm recording. So I will try and keep up with the comments. If you have any questions about this topic, feel free to drop it in the comments below. Sometimes I'm going to stop talking mid-sentence, and it's probably because I am reading a comment and I get distracted by them very easily. So with that introduction, we'll go ahead and get started on the actual topic. So the Arabic word that is usually used is usually translated as brotherhood, and I'm sorry in advance for my pronunciation, it's ikhwan. In terms of the Quran and in Islam, when we're talking about ikhwan, comes from the Arabic word akh, which means brother. So it is important to clarify that when we're talking about religion, when we're talking about Islam, even though the word ikhwan comes from the word akh, which means brother, it does cover both men and women. It's not just for the boys. We are all a brother/sisterhood in Islam, just because it uses something that derives from a word that talks to males in Arabic, does not exclude women. It's also really important, just to go on a very brief tangent here, that unless something specifically addresses men or specifically addresses women explicitly, that we can generally take it to mean that it's for both men and women, unless it, like I said, if Allah is being very, for lack of better phrasing, is being very blatant about it, like this is for the men, this is for the women, etc. So even though the Arabic word translates to brotherhood, it does address both men and women. The information, I'm sorry, not information. See, I'm already getting distracted by the comments. This is no good. So the implication or the meaning of this is, it means, and I think that all Muslims know this to a degree. All Muslims are aware of this concept. We're one community, one ummah. That's what we say. And this is regardless of race. This is regardless of national origin, of gender, of age. We are all brothers and sisters. You can call any Muslim brother, any Muslim sister. One thing that threw me off when I was a new Muslim was how younger people tend to call elders auntie and uncle. That is a cultural practice. It's not un-Islamic or there's nothing wrong with that. But even elder people are also your sisters and brothers. And if it's your cultural practice to call them auntie and uncle, then obviously that's fine. But that really threw me off when I was a new Muslim. I was like, sister and brother and auntie and uncle, like I didn't know about this. But being Muslim and being around Desi and Arabic communities, I've gotten used to this. My husband has a relative who's older, but strictly speaking is more of a cousin than an uncle, but he'll still call him uncle because he's older. And it took me a minute to get used to that. So for the converts out there, you can call elder people brother and sister. It's accurate. But anyway, in case there's a new convert watching this, that really confused me when I was new to Islam. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. So we're kind of starting off at the top somewhat. You know, we're talking about this broad idea of community, of brotherhood or sisterhood in Islam. And in an ideal sense, if our world worked, or if our Muslim community worked in the way that it was supposed to, we would be, you know, one united ummah. That doesn't mean that we would be a monolith, that we would all be the same, that we would all have the same ideas and practices, but we would have a sense of community. This is the ideal. You know, this is something that Muslims love to say. There is no racism in Islam. There's no, you know, tribalism. There's no, no discrimination is basically what we're getting at. And ideally, Islamically, that is how it is supposed to be, right? We're all supposed to be one ummah. We're all brothers and sisters. So we're going to start off with that idea. That's sort of the top level idea. I don't think I don't think I need to make explicit that isn't the reality. Like, we're not living in a world where it operates like that, but we're still going to keep that idea in the back of our mind, this ideal Islamic brotherhood and sisterhood and community. And so for all of you joining late, assalamu alaikum, thank you for joining and watching. We're talking about sisterhood and brotherhood. So oh gosh, I've done it again. So I think it was last time I did one of these videos, I had some audience participation, so to speak, and that worked out pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and try this again. It's not quite as involved as last time, but what I would like to have people do if they my name is Leah, to Muhammad, who just asked. What I would like to have people do is, in the comment, if you have a story of when you really felt like the Muslim community came through for you or for someone you knew, if you can drop that in the comments. I'll try to address them if I've got time at the end. If not, then just please scroll through and read anything that you see. And I'll say a couple more reminders. If you have some nice stories about when the Islamic community, either in your area or, you know, if on a larger scale came together, I'd like to try and focus on positives, because I will be talking about some negatives during this video. So if we have any good positive stories about brotherhood and sisterhood in Islam, if you can drop them in the comments, that would be wonderful, and I'll try and read them. So now we've just gone over this broad concept of brotherhood, sisterhood, of community, basically, in Islam. So what are the implications of this? It is human nature it's human nature for humans, shockingly, to tend to connect more closely with others with whom they have something in common. So, and this is something that's really evident. For example, Muslims, you more easily connect with someone who's Muslim because you know that it's something that you have in common. It's not restricted to religious connection, but for example, you know, if you met someone who had your same name, you're like, oh my gosh, your name is Leah, my name is Leah. You have a connection there. So having this brotherhood and sisterhood in Islam, it's something that creates this cohesive community. This is, you know, we give our salams to each other. At the time of the Prophet, and even to even to an extent in some communities these days, the bonds that people forged were more, it was more focused on, your tribe. Okay. And I'm not trying to, other people who have tribal connections. It's still something that exists to this day, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But in the time of the Prophet especially, there were tribes, or, I can't think of a better word. I know there's a better word than tribe, but I can't think of it. And they would, have, I'm really struggling with my words today, because I want to say they'd have beef with each other, but I want to think of like a more professional way to say that. But they would have problems with each other. And so when Islam was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this was starting to cross over, it wasn't just his group. This is Islam. This is for all of humanity. This is something that was helping to forge this connection and to sort of bridge these gaps that at one time it was nearly impossible to cross. I am going to pause right here really quickly because Yusuf Maguti, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, is bringing up something that's happening in China to the Chinese Muslims right now, and I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit later, so I will address that. And it looks like someone named Sahil just wrote a positive experience in the comments. So if you didn't hear that before, if you've had a positive experience with brotherhood or sisterhood, or the feeling of community in your community, in your Islamic community, or a larger community, if you can drop them in the comments. So what was I even saying? Okay, so Islam is something that, like I was saying, when you have something in common with someone else, you're more easily able to have a connection with them, is what I was saying. So when they had these tribal lines where people only had something in common with people who were either in their group or were close allies with their group, Islam was able to bridge those gaps and form connection with people from other tribes. So that is less relevant in the modern days. It's not gone by any means, but something that's more relevant, especially, I think that these days people more, you're more aligned with your nationality. So I'm American. I lived in Oman for a number of years. There are a lot of Iraqis near where I live. This is a very easy distinction to make between different groups, and I do want to emphasize, Islam doesn't say that we erase these distinctions. I am allowed to be American, and my husband is allowed to be Iraqi, and Malaysians are allowed to be Malaysian. So what I'm very slowly and with a lot of stuttering getting around to saying is, even though we have these distinctions, if I go, I'm going to bring up Malaysia again because I went to Malaysia and I loved it, mashallah, amazing place. If I go to Malaysia, I might not have my nationality in common with a Malaysian person, but it's a Muslim majority country, and so we still have a bond of kinship, a bond of brotherhood or sisterhood between us, and we would still say assalamu alaikum. Whereas if we didn't have this bond of Islam, we might not have a reason to make that connection. I hope I'm making sense. So this is more of a modern, gosh, I just cannot find my words today. I think I've only had a half cup of coffee, and that's really what is slowing me down. This is more of a modern manifestation of tribal divisions in more ancient times. Now it's more divided along the lines of nationality, and we have this bond of brotherhood and sisterhood to bring us together. So if you're from, I just gonna bring up a few nations I saw mentioned in the comments. If I don't mention yours, I'm sorry. If you're in Malaysia, if you're in Kenya, if you're in India, if you're in Kashmir, if you're in China, if you're in anywhere, all of us, maybe not all, because there might be some non-Muslims watching this, but all of us here at least have an interest in this topic of Islam. And probably most of us share this bond, this brotherhood, this sisterhood of Islam. So that's sort of the implication of this, is it's something that crosses over these borders and connects us all as an ummah. And even if there are a lot of negative experiences and negatives that go along with these divisions, and even if the manifestation of brotherhood and sisterhood isn't what it should be, we still share this connection, and it's undeniable. I'm in a WhatsApp chat group. I bet a lot of you know about those WhatsApp chat groups. Muslims love WhatsApp. I'm in a WhatsApp chat group with Muslimas from all over the world, and we are just able to talk about all sorts of things, just because we share this bond of Islam. Even if that's the only thing that we all have in common, mashallah, it's a really great thing. So, I just got this question of if Islamophobia exists in the USA, and yes, it does. But I think it really varies depending on where you live, and alhamdulillah, where I live, there's so many Muslims. I don't experience it very much, mashallah. So if anyone is experiencing Islamophobia where they live, I am genuinely sorry, and I make dua for you. So I'm just scrolling up a little bit to see if I can find a couple stories, because I know there were some. Okay, here, I'm going to read one from Sahil. I didn't read this in advance. So, the best thing about Muslims are sharing food. Absolutely. I was once in a local mosque in Mumbai. There came in a poor man, probably a rag picker. He had some really old clothes, all torn up. Literally, like this person is saying the jeans were literally torn. He was a poor man. He came in with bread for lunch, just a slice of bread. And he came and sat next to me. And the next thing he did was shocking. He made 3 pieces of the bread slice and shared with me and the other person sitting beside him. Wow, mashallah, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Sahil, for that story. And you know, mashallah, that's really what I'm talking about, this bond that we all share. I love these positive stories. I really do. There are so many, and I am going to talk about some of the negatives, some of the things that we should be seeing in the Islamic community, but we don't. Please keep on dropping your positive stories in the comments. Because I mean, that just warmed my heart. And I love that. Okay, I'm scrolling down. I'll try and scroll back up later to catch some more, but I want to get through it. I want to cover. So, super brief recap. We've talked about the concept. We've talked about what brotherhood, sisterhood, community means in Islam and the implications, what it should mean, what we should be seeing when we say we're one ummah, we're brothers and sisters. Now we're going to talk about the reality. Are we truly one community of brothers and sisters? What do you all think? I say yes and no. Because it is, I mean, there are so many negatives in our community. It's undeniable. But there are good things too. For one thing, when there are, and this, I don't like to focus on the negatives in such a beautiful topic as brotherhood and sisterhood, but, and see, I'm actually focusing on the yes right now, but this is talking about negative things anyway. So one example that shows that we're all brothers and sisters, and there is sort of this connection, is when there are bad things happening around the world in Islamic communities. I think that for those of us who the type of people who are on the About Islam page, and for the type of people who aren't just Muslim by name, but have some sort of connection to the religion. We all feel this in our hearts. So I think it was Brother Yusuf there who brought up what was happening to the ethnic minority in China, the Uyghur Muslims, and then in Myanmar, the Rohingya Muslims, that another ethnic group, and then what's happening in Palestine. These are all things that when you learn about them, I mean, obviously we have compassion for all of our brothers and sisters in humanity. You know, we don't, but when we have this shared connection with these people because they're Muslim, it's not that they're more important, but it's almost as though because we have this one thing in common, this Islam, which really connects us on a deep level, we feel this pain. You know, when you read about things that are happening in Palestine, you feel this ache in your heart. You know, even if there's nothing that you can do, you know, you still feel the pain of other Muslims. And in fact, one really lovely example of this is you know, you'll occasionally see Palestinian activists in Palestine, you know, who live there under Israeli occupation, showing their support for other humanitarian crises around the world, you know, even though they are in the middle of, you know, this oppression and having their land taken from them. They're still, you know, obviously they're Muslim. They still have it. They have this connection to other people, other Muslims. And I've seen this all over social media, you know, Palestinians in the thick of it, sharing their love for other Islamic and even non-Muslim communities who are having humanitarian crises. So we do have this sort of connection. So I say on a macro level, like on the larger scale, I think we do a fairly good job in general. I'm not going to say across the board, but in general, we do a pretty good job of sharing this brotherhood and sisterhood. On a more personal level, we do have a lot of struggles in our communities. One thing I won't ever stop talking about is racism in our communities. When you post, you know, and it's true, in Islam there is no racism, right? It's forbidden, it's haram. But amongst Muslims, if you think there's no racism, you are fooling yourself. People, and I'm going to speak to my own experience because I don't want to put words in the mouths of other people. Or you know, talk about things where it's not really my right. But I'm a convert. I'm obviously, I'm a white convert from America. And I've seen, you know, when you have a new convert in a mosque, people get so excited. But mostly only if it's a white convert. If they're, you know, if there's someone who's interested in Islam who is black, who's African American, there's so much less interest. And it's blatant and it's shameful. You know, the Prophet ﷺ told us that, I mean, let me backtrack. You know, Bilal, Allah be pleased with him, who was one of the Prophet ﷺ's closest companions, he was black. Who are we to look down upon other people or to accept them less because of their color? That is shameful. That is un-Islamic. And I'm pretty sure I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm not going to see any of you lovely people in the comments saying, oh no, we should be racist. No, I know that, you know, I know better than that. But what I'm asking is to please not turn a blind eye to that sort of thing in our community. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, even if it means calling people who are respected into question, even if it means calling someone, sorry, got a phone call, calling someone who is an elder into question. It's more important to show a bond of Islam and a bond of brotherhood and sisterhood than to hold your tongue if an elder is speaking. Because that elder is also our brother and sister in Islam. And so we owe it to them as a Muslim to show them the right path, to show them that what they are. And it's not only the elders either. Young people do it too. This is just my example. People are very afraid to call these things out. But please remember in your heart that, the people who are being discriminated against, they're either your brother or sister in Islam or your potential brother and sister in Islam. And again, I'm almost always talking about issues that affect converts. So I'm bringing it back to the converts. I think a lot of converts, no matter your color, have experienced this. If you were fortunate enough to experience that initial excitement and welcoming into the community, after a while it drops off. Like, people expect you to adapt really quickly, and that's not really a showing of brotherhood and sisterhood either. So those are other areas. There is a lot of animosity. Some people in the comments were bringing up, sectarian issues, Sunni and Shia, saying the other person is kuffar, etc., 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 which is, when it comes down to it, if you believe La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, you're a Muslim. So with all this nonsense of tearing us apart, it's tearing us apart, which is what I was going to say. I want to, I see one comment that is talking about something that I did witness a bunch when I was living in an Islamic country in Oman, where certain nationalities think of themselves as superior to others. And that's another thing that really breaks down this beautiful concept of sisterhood and brotherhood. You're not better because you're from X country or whatever. That's not how it is. And it's a totally un-Islamic thing. But again, I'm preaching to the choir. I think you all know this. The challenge here, I kind of just said this, but I want to restate it. The challenge for all of you wonderful people, my brothers and sisters who are watching this, is not to understand these comments or these concepts and know them, because you already do. The challenge is when you see this wrong being done, when you see the barriers of brotherhood and sisterhood being broken down, is to call it out and to do your best to correct it. So that's what I want to challenge everyone who's been watching this today. If you see behaviors in your community, no matter who it's done by, even if it's done by the sheikh who is in charge of your mosque, if you see barriers being broken down, call out the wrong where you see it, for the sake of brotherhood in our faith. So I just scrolled through the comments. If I missed any more happy stories about brotherhood, I'm sorry. I didn't see them, but I'm not always really good at seeing all the comments as I'm doing this session. So I am going to finish by telling a little anecdote. I'm not going to give any names or anything, but yes, I am from America, for whoever is watching this, or for whoever asked that. I'm from America, born and raised. So my little anecdote about the true meaning of brotherhood in Islam. An acquaintance of mine was recently in Oman. I used to live there. I don't live there anymore. And she and her husband were traveling, and it was time to pray. And they had their daughter with them, and their daughter is young and a little bit rambunctious. So they were going to have to take turns. Like, one of them was going to go into the mosque and pray, and the other one would keep the daughter, and then they would switch. And they came across an Omani man while they were traveling, and they asked him where the closest mosque was so that they could pray. And he said, "Oh no, you know, why don't you just come to my home? It will be easier with your daughter. And so they did. He welcomed them into his home and, you know, gave them a quiet place to pray. And that is something that I can easily see. I think that obviously there are good and bad everywhere you go, but it is really a true cultural phenomenon among a lot of Omanis that they tend to be very, very welcoming and kind to strangers. So that was a lovely little anecdote I wanted to share that sort of illustrated, you know, this beauty of the concept of brotherhood and sisterhood. And I'm a bit of a broken record here, but all of us watching this video know about the importance of brotherhood and sisterhood. You know, focus on the positives, remember the positives, but also be aware of where we fall short. Be aware of it and try and call it out where you see the wrongs being done. Even if it puts you in an uncomfortable position, inshallah, you'll be rewarded for doing good and trying to correct something that was causing harm to another Muslim. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you everyone who is commenting. There are a lot of really happy comments today, so that's great. And I do one of these videos about once a month, so inshallah I will talk to you all next month sometime. Assalamu alaikum.